Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pension Subcommittee on Education and the American Family will come to order. Thanks for being here. As you can tell, we're running a little late. It's a little hectic on the Hill today, but we will survive. This afternoon, we're having a hearing on empowering families for better educational results. Ranking Member Blunt Rochester and I will each have an opening statement. The witnesses will have 5 minutes for their opening statements, and senators will each have 5 minutes for questions. We will obviously have senators coming in and out because many votes today. So thank you to all the witnesses for being here today. It's always nice to see a fellow Alabamian here today, up here in the swamp. Thanks to Mr. Barnett for coming to visit today. We've called this hearing to discuss something very near and dear to my heart. One of the reasons I'm here. I was an educator for decades before I decided to come up here, and over those years, I saw the state of our education system decline. The federal government just kept spending more money in K through 12 education, and the more they spent, the worse the outcomes became. It was just amazing to me to watch it in real time, and it made no sense. It's the main reason I chose to run for this office. I didn't want to see our kids fail year after year. Then I got here and realized that we can fix it, but a lot of things are broken. 4 years I've been serving here on the Help Committee, and this year I finally got this gavel to make sure we could have something like this to where we could bring things to light. I wanted to focus on our kids' educational outcomes and figure out where we were failing and also where we're doing good things. That lends us to today. That's why we're having this hearing. We need to take a good hard look at our K through 12 education system and figure out what can we do to fix it, to make it better. Because the status quo in a lot of areas is not cutting it. That means we need to think outside the box. Since COVID, parents have gotten a lot more engaged, and that's where all the necessary change can start, right at home, family. And since parents have started paying more attention, they've started calling for more and more options. Parents across our country are calling for their states to offer more options for their kids outside of failing school systems. States represented by folks on both sides of this dais are working on school choice options in their state legislatures. We'll hear about that issue from our witnesses today. Parents want these options, and we ought to listen to them. In my home state of Alabama, last year we passed the CHOOSE Act, which created an income tax credit for families who choose to enroll their children in private schools or homeschooling. Virginia, Florida, Alaska, Massachusetts, New Jersey, Indiana, and Washington are just a few states to name that have implemented or have pending state legislation to create these income tax credits promoting school choice. It's simple. When we give our parents and students choice, we yield better educational results. We owe our kids this investment. But it doesn't end there. Right now, our kids in a lot of areas can't read. We have kids entering middle school and high school who aren't at a third grade reading level. I used to recruit kids. I'd bring them in with 3.5 GPAs. The next thing I know, after testing them, they wouldn't be sixth grade reading level. Something has got to change with that. States and governors across our country have taken up the literacy challenge and enacted legislation at the state level where it should be. Ranking Member Blunt Rochester's home state of Delaware passed House Bill 304 that implemented reading assessments 3 times a school year for kids K through 3, and my state passed the Alabama Literacy Act, which does the same thing. And we're trying. No matter the state, this is a widespread effort, and we will discuss today the methods that are working. We'll talk about the science of reading and how best to implement it in our classrooms. We'll hear about how we can invest in our teachers and best prepare them to tackle this crisis head on. They need to be set up for success just as much as our students do. I want today to be an opportunity for this committee to have a conversation about what our states are doing and what can we do to support them from here, from the federal level. Our children are the best resource this country has, the best thing we've got going. And above all, we owe them one thing, an opportunity to succeed. and I look forward to working with all of you towards this common goal. Now I'll yield to my ranking member, Senator Blunt Rochester, for her opening statement. Thank you, Senator Kane. Mr. Barnett, we've had tremendous growth in the number of students across America enrolling in charter schools, over 4 million students to be exact. How does that success of charter schools impact our district public school system?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there are really two large national studies that speak to this. One comes out of the Progressive Policy Institute and another comes out of the Fordham Institute. Both actually show that the presence of charter schools has in some way improved outcomes within district schools. There's a certain threshold that the Progressive Policy Institute's study showed somewhere around 30%. So the presence of charter schools that give up to 30% of students in a given market the opportunity to enroll has positive net impact on not only charter school performance, but also district performance.
Yeah. Why are we seeing literacy stats rise in charter schools versus public schools? Why is that happening?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, Senator?
Why is the literacy rate rising? In other words, we're having better scores in charter schools and not as well in public schools.
Well, I can really only speak to the results in Alabama. Alabama has adopted the science of reading by law as mandatory. Every charter school participates in what we call letters training, which is essentially teaching teachers how to implement the science of reading. And that's through the Alabama Reading Initiative. And so statewide in Alabama, reading scores are improving, and the latest NAEP scores show that. They are also improving among charter schools, and our charter schools are improving at a faster rate currently in the state of Alabama writ large. What I would say is we do have a number of districts where, at least within specific schools, we are not seeing those trends. And I'll use Birmingham City Schools as an example. Birmingham City Schools, 43 schools in the district. There are still 2 schools in that district where 1% or fewer of kids are proficient in reading outcomes. There are a number of schools in the district, 7 schools, I believe, where 0 to 1% of kids are proficient in reading or math, and there are 13 schools where less than 5% are proficient in either subject. So it's still a problem, but I think it's kind of localized a little bit more in Alabama.
Ms. Wicks, you talked about teacher preparedness and professional development in your testimony. How important is preparing our educators to teach the science of reading method?
Senator, thank you for that important question. It's critical that we give educators the right preparedness to understand this issue and be able to deploy it in their classrooms. I referenced in my opening remarks that only 25% of educator prep programs are currently teaching the science of reading to their aspiring teachers. And even worse, about 40% of them are teaching the wrong stuff. So they're teaching these brand new teachers the wrong way to teach reading. If they're interested in more, the National Council on Teacher Quality put out that report. They're the best at studying teacher prep programs. And I think this comes down to a matter of state leadership and accreditation. They make some recommendations about the importance of setting state standards for what these programs need to be teaching. Have some way to measure that if it's through accreditation or others, and then to tie the state licensure exams to those standards to ensure that those candidates have actually learned this and can do it in their classroom. And you see the same thing for sitting teachers who maybe never got this in their training and need that professional development.
Thank you. Ms. Gentles, on both sides there's an argument whether President Trump and the Department of Education is undermining public school. And because of the work done to expand school choice, do you think there's a truth to that argument?
Consistently, studies show that when states have implemented school choice programs, the nearby public schools have benefited. So increasing competition inspires innovation, and a rising tide lifts all boats. So we were pleased to see the executive order from the president supporting expanding school choice, educational freedom. And we're also pleased to see the executive order ordering the Secretary of Education to look into dismantling the Department of Education within federal law, and with the understanding that the Secretary will be working with Congress on that, because we do think that freeing up federal regulations, freeing up states from federal regulations, from monitoring, from compliance, all the time that all those bureaucrats at the state and district level are spending on federal paperwork is going to benefit public education. It's going to benefit public school students. It's going to benefit public school educators.
Do you think we should give more power back to the states when it's education?
Absolutely. We need to give power to the states. I think we've heard such great news today on what strong state leaders, sensible state leaders implementing common sense policies are doing. It's very encouraging to see what's happening. We didn't mention Louisiana, but Louisiana is a bright spot amidst the 2024 NAEP scores, the only state where fourth grade reading scores exceeded pre-COVID results.
More so than Alabama?
Alabama's pretty awesome too. It's been referred to as the Southern Surge. There's really good news coming out of the states, and encouraging that, fostering that is absolutely the right direction. Education policies set at the state level, and let's foster that, and let's get the federal government out of the way.